Chairman, you are set.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll start tonight's City of Olivet Planning Community Design Commission for April 2nd, 2026 to order. Madam Secretary, you please call the roll.
Certainly. Robert Jergiel,
Present.
Jenna Nat,
Present.
Tim Spiegelglass,
Absent.
absent, Sam Wallach,
Present.
Felicia Ford,
Absent.
and Laura Ragsdale,
Present.
and myself, Petrie Powell, present.
Let it also be known that our City Council liaison, Brian Lewis is in attendance, as well as our staff liaisons, Carlos Trejo, Olivet's Director of Planning and Community Development Department, Dawn Doty, Senior Planner, and Jack Carswell, Planning and Zoning Administrator. So appreciate everybody in attendance, which we have none. And we do not have anybody online too. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, so we're going to kind of skip the intro and then we're going to skip the public comments and we'll move on to new business item A, which is 7 Lisa Drive. Jack?
Good evening, Commission. So before you tonight is 7 Lisa Drive. 7 Lisa Drive is before you for a site plan variation. This house was before you guys in June of 2025. It was approved on the night that it was before the commission. It then came back for an addendum on November 6th for a material change, and that they are now, we spoke with the petitioner. The petitioner's buyer would like to have a pool upon occupancy. So they would like that to be part of the project and have the pool handled as part of the permit during the time that they're going about the home. So we wanted to bring the pool before you guys to make you aware that this pool is now coming in. However, the pool square footage and patio square footage is all numbers that would have been approved administratively. So if they had waited, for the building permit and the house to be closed, came in with a pool, that pool would have just gone through our building permit process and not come before you guys. Just to give you guys some little numbers, 523 square feet for the pool, 633 square feet for the patio. They don't hit the 5% flat work number. They don't hit the 10% accessory structure coverage number. They don't exceed their lot coverage, as well as the only thing is the pool crosses over the rear yard setback. However, our accessory code allows pools to be as far away from the property line as much as 10 feet. The max, you can't go closer to the property line than 10 feet. So they are about 30 or 27 feet away from the property line there.
Can you just go back?
Mm-hmm.
Within the, I misunderstood what you said. It's not within the setback?
It is not within the rear yard setback, but with our accessory structure code, pools are allowed to extend up to 10 feet away from the rear yard setback.
What's the rear yard setback?
The rear yard setback's like 31 feet.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't realize
Yep.
it was that high.
That's a 20,000 square foot lot, and pools in our code would allow up to, on this size of a lot, would allow administrative pools up to 1,000 square feet. So they're about at 523, so they're at half of that, which they don't even tick the first check mark for the 10,000 square foot lots for pools with this size pool.
So my understanding, right,
Mhm.
are they selling the house, renovating the house?
So McKelvey owns the house currently.
Okay.
And when they appeared before the commission, they didn't have a buyer yet. And then
Now they
during
have
the
a buyer.
building process, the buyer came in, said they wanted a pool and they wanted it built upon before occupancy, rather than going through the permitting process afterwards.
Yeah. Is there an existing pool?
There was an existing pool. It was demoed.
Okay.
And the house is not being demoed.
The house is already
Done.
demoed, I think. I don't know. I don't think it's completed through the building permit process in terms of
No, it's still under construction.
it's still under construction. Yes.
So we only have to review because of the timing.
They added the pool and we wanted to bring it before the commission for input as the pool, but also making sure that we got the mailings out to the community and that everyone was aware that that site plan has now changed and has added a pool. And as a result of those mailings, I don't know if Carlos has, but I have not received any concerns from any of the neighbors regarding the pool.
Good.
With the pool in the previous home was more centralized and kind of in the same shape. But now they've just, moved the orientation a little bit.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jack. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Jack or staff?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further discussion on this item? That being said, do I hear a motion?
Yeah, we would request if a motion is considered that the motion be to add the pool and flat work to the approved community design review for this 7 Lisa Drive.
Great. Do you have a example motion?
How about a so moved?
There you go.
There we go. Nicely done. That's keeping things moving. Carlos, you please call the vote.
Need a second.
Second.
And seconded by Laura Ragsdale.
On the motion to add the pool to the approved new home community design review plans. Commissioner Ragsdale,
Approved.
Commissioner Nat,
Approved.
Commissioner Powell,
Approved.
Commissioner Wallach,
Approved.
Commissioner Jurgel.
Approved.
So the motion passes unanimously, 5-0. So we'll note this to the applicant.
Good, good, good. Okay, so no other new business. We'll move on to item 4, which is discussion regarding petition review process.
So last commission meeting, I was here before you guys discussing the review process to provide, a little bit more information regarding that. I'm still currently in the brainstorm process of working on this PCDC review guide of kind of getting like all of this information kind of in one place so that you can use it for, petitioners, community members, and staff resources. The pages that are kind of pasted on this slide are just examples. I have, a documentation guide that serves as a checkbox for the, petitioners to go through. I was taking some notes from Clayton's ARB board and how they went about it. And they have a very good section about like frequently asked questions and trying to go about that. So I'm kind of putting together a frequently asked questions sheet, as well as some of the information Carlos and I were discussing was when we see these site plans, we see the project data tables and the property information tables, and those are pretty helpful, but those are not really required in terms of a submission standard. So it would be nice to see those more uniform just so that information is flat and straightforward in front of you guys as well, where you can see, hey, this is the side yard setback, or this is, our front building line, so that we have that information. So we're kind of working through looking at those submission standards and editing those. The guide will also include, the review timeline flow chart that's still, I want to build it out just so that I can take into account the full guide and then make that review or that flow chart a little bit more in depth with the information that's on here. And then it's going to have, the frequently asked questions, a documentation list, the submission standards, an application copy on there with, some sheets to additional resources, as well as I put together a directory as well. It doesn't have any of your guys' contact information, but it just says your name and your, the status that you are on the commission. And then it has all of our staff information to get in contact with us as well. In terms of the submission standards, last meeting when we were here, we were talking about the complications that we sometimes run into reviews with holding, a 500 square foot patio or, 600 square foot patio to the same standards as a new home. So I was just asking for the commission, just if you guys had any input of, we're kind of bouncing through some ideas and we were looking at some different like tiering of standards, if that makes sense, in terms of like low impact improvements versus moderate impact improvements, and then your major developments, which will be your new homes. And those new homes will be subject to all of those submission standards. So I was trying to come to you guys before to ask if you guys had any input or insight on how to kind of break up the moderate versus the low impact, because we do run into those challenges with, a lot of different triggers in terms of, or thresholds in terms of our code where, sorry. Yes, Ms. Powell.
No, I think that's a great idea because it seems overly burdensome for really minor project, what I would consider minor projects. Maybe somewhere between the moderate and the larger would be an addition versus a tear down and a completely new build. And then flat work being the simplest, of all the projects that you would look at. But I definitely think that there should be some gradation of how much review we're talking about. And like this pool that we just saw, that, even an administrative, that this complied, all we needed really was Carlos to sign off. We didn't really
Yeah.
need to see that today.
Well, we had to sign off on it to document that we saw the change because of the
Right.
site plan
Right.
review.
But I mean, that just extended again to a homeowner and therefore the cost of development and therefore the affordability of development. And so think that there are things within the low threshold that could be done more administratively than we didn't need to see that. I mean, I just don't think that we really add anything. And I think that's the answer is what are we adding if you want something to come before us?
And
And
something
it's-
that staff, sorry, something that staff did talk about was trying to like increase those numbers in terms of like, flat work is at 5% or 500 square feet. What if we upped the square footage of the flat work before it has to come to you? But if it does exceed 5% of the lot, then we do take it before you or something.
Yeah.
But staff are in the conversations of brainstorming through that. And it's going to be, I want to get this review guide kind of more codified and then bring it before you guys to show you, more of a finalized product just to get your input on it. And
I do think
process.
though, if, when you do bring it to us, I would do that in 3 separate, let's just talk about the low threshold
Okay.
things first so that we can cover everything and not feel rushed then when we get to the the big things, I guess. I don't, I just think if we split it up, we'll do a better job than just saying, oh, here's the whole ordinance.
Yeah.
We're never gonna go through an entire ordinance in one session and have it be meaningful. So that's just my thought.
Sweet.
One
And
other
here's
thought.
Go ahead. Sorry, sir.
One other thought I have, and this is maybe easier said than actually done, is not just size being a factor in determining whether or not it's administrative, but like whether or not there's some aesthetic review that's part of it. Flat work is flat work.
Yeah.
Whether it's 5% or 10%. Now, I suppose there's a certain percentage where it dominates the property, and then that does become sort of like an aesthetic issue. So I don't know. That's more conceptual than it is definite. So I'll leave you to think about how to ponder that. But to Petrie's point, like there needs to be some like aesthetic judgment that's going into it. Otherwise, I don't feel like bringing a whole lot to rendering a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can add, and there's 2 components. There's that 2-dimensional view and then a 3-dimensional view. And I think that's what we're trying to separate of what design input is a commission providing in a 2-dimensional product that's flat. Now, there are, and the larger ones where we do want some input on stormwater and impact, but really on those larger ones. The second thing too is like, we put this together because it was easier for the commission to kind of see what was going on. But this is part of what they're submitting for the application. I mean, we are getting the full detail that you would have seen, but it really gets lost, in that process. And it's really more for us and when they're out there doing the construction. So it's trying to, to simplify in there. And the other thing too, in this, Jack's still kind of holding that they have to provide a streetscape. Well, you're not, there is the streetscape right here because the pool's completely behind.
All right.
So the end goal, I think, is what Mr. Carlos was trying to do is just kind of, put a little bit more common sense into that process and streamline it
I think that
in
makes
there. And again, I think staff, is still going to require the details that you traditionally see in there for the permitting too. So
Is there a way just to add some exceptions to certain things, rather than redoing the whole thing?
So the complications that I've run into when trying to like tier all of these accessory structures out in different improvements is, like Commissioner Wallach was saying, with the size is not the only thing to be, part of the review and part of that tiering. But then, there are these different complications that come up with it may be size, permitted, but then all of a sudden it's over a certain setback. And then now it has to come before you guys. So it's certain, there are different parameters that we look at in terms of the setbacks, but then also now it's not only based off size. And then, what happens when it triggers the arborist report, or what happens when now it triggers, engineering, where it comes to all these different thresholds. And I'm trying to, do these different examples and figure out how these could fall under these tiers. But, it's kind of more of a case by case basis too. So we'll have to see how it works as it, is active.
Yeah.
On your point about, now it goes into the setback, to me, unless it's an item for the zoning, oh my God, I can't think of the name of the zoning board. Pardon me?
Zoning Board of Administration.
That, yeah. To me, if something is in the setback, it's a problem. And it shouldn't even come to us. They should just be told, you're inside the setback and you can't do that. So redraw it and get it in the setback. There's a reason for the setback. We all agreed to the setbacks, whatever us and council has done. I don't see any reason why.
And they could always appeal it.
They can go to the Board of Adjustment. That was-
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
And they would go there first too, you
Yeah,
know.
and so like to me, you just mentioned that and I thought, wait a minute, have we been approved, have we ever approved anything that for whatever reason we allowed them in the setback?
Well, so for instance, there'll be a new item coming up down the line that's a pool, and the pool the flat work rule is, there's a certain rule that allows certain flat work to go over a side yard setback.
Like driveways.
Yeah, and also certain size of, patios and such. So it's also tricky because this lot is a corner lot, so they do have two frontages and everything. So it's going to be a particular case by case basis. But like you guys will see that this flat work extends, but it doesn't extend more than 10 feet, past the to the property line. So there's certain things, but then it's trying to work in those thresholds to make it more.
I guess that what I'm getting to is kind of the point that I was making last time, which is I think there's a lot of things that should be done administratively that to not wedge the circle in the square hole, but to make sure that it does comply and that we're not, continually allowing all these exceptions. That should all be resolved before we ever see it is sort of my thought process on this. Is some things I just don't think really we're.
Some things don't fit, a corner lot that has two front yards.
There should be rules about that, though. There should be rules about setbacks on a corner lot. And if they have a problem with the setback, then they need to go to the Board of Adjustment and try to make their case that somehow that yard is unusual enough to require a deviation from the standard.
Is the Board of Adjustment another board within all of that?
The legal
How
board.
we-
Yeah.
Oh,
He
it's a
just
legal
thinks,
board.
yeah, I mean, you appeal to the circuit court if you don't win you're adjusting the zoning ordinance. So we have a zoning ordinance. It lays out the rules. If for some reason you have a weird shaped property that has some unusual feature like a mountain in the middle of it and you can't do flat work within the setbacks, you can go to the Board of Adjustment and say, my property's weird. I need a variance. But you don't just get a variance just because you want one. You have to show there's something about your property.
We don't have the discretion to operate outside of the.
I would
ordinances.
think so.
Like, we have not done that as
No.
far as I.
No.
Okay,
Right, no.
as long as
No.
we're clear that we're not,
Well-
we are not doing that.
And Commissioner Powell is correct, but it just depends on how the ordinance is written. So somebody could not create a three-dimensional structure and encroach into the yard setback areas.
What about
Those-
retaining walls?
Pardon?
What about retaining walls?
Retaining walls are exempt in the code. Yeah, those are
Okay.
specifically called out. So is flat work, that can go up to a certain distance. In some of these, though, the way the code is written is in an effort to, because we have one zoning type of district applied to a variety of different properties. There are sections in the code that allow for what we call the variations, and that the commission has the authority to consider some leniency in the setback for specific type of structures. But that requires the commission approval. And the reason the city does that is the commission is looking at it from a planning and an aesthetic standard. The Board of Zoning Adjustment has rigid rules of what can be considered in there, and most of it deals with a hardship or making the property unviable or usable for the user. And that's it's got a very high threshold. So therefore, the way our code is written, adopted by the council, is to provide some leniency on some items. A pool is one, and like Jack had noted, the property that was before you has I believe like a 30-foot setback, but the city allows a pool to go into that setback area, but can be no closer than 10 feet from the rear line.
Makes sense.
Same with the side yards. We had that one gentleman, I think that was on Dolores. He wanted to put a door in the garage and have a sidewalk off in there, but he was already too close. He was 5 feet from the property line, and therefore that isn't, 5 feet is the bare minimum. So He had to redesign or remove the door in that process. So there are some things, and we do it for a specific purpose. Fences is another one. Commission has seen several fences in there that the council specifically removed it from the board of adjustment because they have a higher threshold and put it in the laps of the commission to use your better judgment, in terms of something makes sense on the specific property. So.
Can you go back to the next slide? Sorry. And then the last thing is, while, staff are just working through this process of getting these tiers smoothed out. If you go to the next slide, Carlos, I'm going to do in the future for the staff reports is I'm going to give you guys the submission list just of those standards, and say a pool does come in and they, I'm going to do my review. I'm going to go through that submission list and I'm going to say, hey, these are critical to staff's analysis and these need to be part of your revisions. And then, for instance, if it was a pool and they didn't mark the HVAC system on the plans, I'm going to just mark it red in text for you. And it's just going to be a page in your staff report that shows that these are the submissions that, the petitioner chose to not put on their plans. And if you guys feel that it's necessary, then we can go down the route and say like, hey, we think that HVAC does need to be on the plans. Let's go with that. Or you guys can then seek the information that they, chose to not or did not think that was applicable to the project. So we'll just have that as an extra component of the staff report. And the stuff on the right is I'm going to do my review notes a little bit differently too, is I would always send them just a list of all of the submission standards that they are not, or that they're deficient in. Those plans will come back. We'll see some of them addressed and some of them, are just left out. And that way I'm going to, make it so that these are the ones that they know that are critical for the review. And then I will let them, decide if they don't want to, then they can vouch before the commission and the commission can decide if they are necessary or not for that portion. But, I'm going to call out all of the necessary information and make sure that we get all of the stuff that staff finds critical for the review before the commission.
Go.
Carlos, next slide, please, whenever you're ready. So then I just wanted to quickly touch on the trees. We had talked about the text changes. I'm still working with the staff discussion and we're still discussing the portion related to the offsite trees and how that would work towards the calculation in our ordinance. But then just the one other portion I wanted to discuss is it was funny because today internally we had a little technical difficulty with the printer. So that's why you guys will see that you have significantly less paper in front of you today. So I was just curious about the direction we want to go. If we're still, all good with paper copies, we can, but if there was some way of limiting the amount of paper, I was trying to get these numbers to you so I could show you how many packets I print out and how many pages each time that we see, but I'm still struggling to find that number. So I think I'm going to have to actually go in and calculate, count this is how much material we provided you at this meeting and I can find that, but
It is still a lot.
Mhm.
A lot.
I appreciate that it is a lot, and maybe the whole tier system can also dictate the paper,
Mhm.
the amount of paper. The more complicated something is, the more paper I'm gonna want to see.
The hard part is you don't know
But
how
you
complicated.
don't know how complicated something is, and maybe we just leave that up to you all. I mean, I think the staff report is good. I mean, this is the first city I've been in that where we have a whole screen in front of our own screen and can really look at stuff. And you all do a great job of highlighting the areas that we're talking about so that we're not hopelessly lost. But I don't know that we really even needed this piece of paper tonight, the pool.
Yeah, and I printed that out last minute when the printer started working, just so that we had something for you guys to show. Uh-huh.
It's like with the elevations,
Uh-huh.
sometimes those are really helpful when we're looking
Yeah.
at certain
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Okay. And I think that's something that, we discussed internally too. No matter what, you'll always get the staff report and the plans, the certain necessary components of the plans.
Yeah.
Just, if there's other additional resources or something, sometimes I end up printing, some text amendments that maybe we can just throw on the screen versus the whole packet.
Or if there's neighbor or comments
Mm.
that neighbors or people have, I think you should print that out because sometimes we don't see those.
And then you get the whole chain too, if it's in an email chain, all
Yeah.
printed out on that sheet. Mhm.
Because even sometimes when I review the agenda, I'm not seeing the comments that are coming in last minute and stuff like that.
Sweet.
Yeah, like this.
Mhm.
Share for two people.
Okay, yeah, that could work
Yeah.
too. Just brainstorming ideas just to see, because
People.
just chew up all the trees that we're knocking down. Yeah.
So just be on the lookout. Staff will be back before you again with the more information regarding that PCDC review guide, the tiered submissions, and then we'll get this tree ordinance a little bit more, codified before you guys with
Yeah.
those text changes.
And we're never going to get it perfect, but I think if you printed out something less, we can always ask Carlos to pull that up and bring it up. He's always really good about, if we want to see a Google Street View or whatever. I think, we could always do that as well.
Sounds good.
So,
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Jack.
okay, good discussion. Any other further comments? All right, so we'll move on to item 5, analysis of current application of ordinance 2821. You jumped ahead. No, hey, that's good. All right, we'll move on to item 6, 2024 comprehensive plan update. Carlos?
We'll move quickly through the beginning part, but everybody's familiar with the comprehensive plan vision. We've talked about it, our community goals, the 10 that are outlined in the plan, the comprehensive plan and priorities from the council. And then we've gone through our survey process and we've identified some areas that we're going to be focusing on. I'm going to talk real quickly about the new residential districts and housing affordability. Just some data for the commission as we go through and start looking at that. At our last meeting, we kind of talked about using the northeast quadrant, which is the Hilltop Arrowhead area, as a good area because it's pretty well controlled and getting some information regarding what is in there. And there's about 3 or 4 different housing types in there that all fall under one residential zoning district in there. So I wanted to kind of talk about just a little bit about that, just to get you guys thinking in there. As we talk about affordability, back in 2023, Stacker, which provides news feeds for papers, Olivet, Missouri was in the top 50 of the highest percentage change in housing values in there. And you could see in the change of the cost of the median cost of housing.
In Missouri.
In Missouri, yes. We were number 24 out of 50 communities in Missouri. This year, we're no longer there. You can see back in 2024, the 1-year price change was about 5.2% here. This year, we were at 2%. Communities that stayed there were also in the top 50 back in 2023 were Creve Coeur, Ladue, Warson View. All those, their housing values were increasing much faster than ours in there. So that doesn't say anything, but it does reflect what we're kind of seeing in our permitting in terms of like we're not having that much new construction as we were in the past. And the market's kind of slow for various other reasons. Then we look here in terms of the 3 primary communities in the Ladue School District, Creve Coeur, Frontenac, Ladue, and Olivet. And again, we are the most affordable of those 4. Huntley is also part of the district, and I think Crystal Lake, and there may be one more.
It's not showing up on this screen, is it?
Well, I didn't see the need, but the goal is to reflect as we talk about. There's the affordability and attainable homes, in looking at.
Can you define that? Because never in my universe was $517,000 considered affordable. So what is our standard for
And that's what we're-
affordable and attainable and?
And that, I think that's the discussion we
Insane.
want to have
Yeah.
in there. Because if I throw in, I had University City prior, and I was going to throw in Overland, but they're like well below. They were at 250 to 125. So it's just in what do we want that environment to be in as we take a look at that.
And are these numbers just within the entire city of Olivet or our subject area that we're thinking about looking at?
This is the entire city of
In the
Olivet.
entire city,
Mhm.
okay.
So we're going to now try to narrow it down, and we'll talk about the northeast quadrant to show you what the median household value is in there. That takes a little bit more calculation, pulling things from county piece by piece in there. But I wanted to give you a framework in there. The other thing, Go ahead.
The graphs are very similar.
Mhm.
Yeah. in terms of rise and fall and stuff like that. So, which is
Yes.
pretty interesting. And you could see the Frontenac and Ladue has a much steeper increase compared to Olivet and Creve Coeur. So,
But what you're not seeing here, what this does not have the nuance of is I doubt very seriously there is a new house in Olivet that costs $517,000.
oh, agree.
Correct. This is
You
the
know,
average.
that is an average. And so I think we need to know, okay, of that 517, how many are, 517 and below, what are the actual numbers? And, what is the upper limit? Because there's not in our universe a brand new $517,000 house anywhere near here in my thinking. That's just, I think we do have to get nuanced here. I mean, I
And
think
that's
just
something,
like-
I mean, we
yeah.
can look within a 5 mile radius to what the new house constructions. Odds are Oberlin's not going to have something comparable. We may find something in Maryland Heights.
Well, are they, when you say houses, are these standalone homes or?
Detached, single family homes,
detached? Okay, so
new
we're not-
construction for
We're not putting in like an Avenir or something.
kind of doing
lower.
apple per apple.
Honestly, I think you have to stay in the Ladue School District,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because
A big driver.
it
Mhm.
is. There's one way to reduce the property values, and that's. lose
But
the
if you look at University City, I mean, they have a wide, from unfortunately south to north, variation in housing prices like we do. I mean, I think that there's less building going on there, but in terms of having modest housing, there's a lot of modest housing in University City as equally as there is very
You
high
might be
end.
able to normalize it based on the price per square foot of the lot.
But yeah, isn't U City though, what the size of U City is much larger than
Well, it's
Olivet too?
33,000 people.
It's 33,000, so we're already
Right.
like five
Yeah.
times, or four times that. But that, my point is they're gonna have so many more houses, which gives you more diversity options. And some of the houses are older, I think, but it's an interesting challenge because I think having Ladue School District drives us up immediately. And we seem to be the most affordable, and I'm saying it's affordable, but most affordable of those in Ladue School District
Right.
right now. And I share your concern or challenge in the sense of like, I want to keep people's housing growing, but I also want to make this an entry point for families, and it's a constant challenge.
One of the things too, we can take a look at based on what Commissioner Powell was talking about. One is there may be the ability that we can in the cost of a new home, remove the cost of the land. And we can look at comparables of just land between different communities and school districts, because that plays a factor. But then we can go into the cost per square foot, because that should be pretty well consistent in there. The materials are going to cost me the same in U City, Creve Coeur, Ladue, and all of that. Where the difference may be is the size of the home. And again, once you multiply that cost per square foot, the larger house is going to have, and maybe look at it from that perspective. And so we can pull some of those numbers. Any other questions?
No, this is great though. This information is fantastic.
The next thing is just kind of what is going on in all of that right now. This is coming from our permit tracking system that started in 2021 and kind of identifies how many houses were demoed. I apologize for that January up on top, but for the past 5 years, and then how many new homes were built in the same past 5 years. And you can see, COVID or pre-COVID, it was pretty slow. Now we have this 19, but a majority of that is the Irvington Rhyme homes that were removed for the crossing,
I think a map of the locations of these would be really helpful.
Okay.
To see. I mean, it's only 21 homes, so, I mean, to me, it seems like it would be helpful to know, well, we're really demoing homes south of Olive for the
That's
most.
on one street.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, maybe it's more, in the permit issue, but I think mapping is always really helpful to see where things are
Sure.
happening.
I don't quite understand it though. I see the 19 star, but then it
Oh.
says including 21 homes. Why doesn't that match up?
That was on my end. Sorry. That was my mistake here.
Well.
Is it 19 or 21?
I think it should have been 21.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So I apologize
No
about
worries.
that, because again,
19 plus and 21 is more than 19.
and I kept it here. I didn't change this right here, either. That's my mistake. So again, the number jumps up because we were removing a whole subdivision,
Mhm.
in there, but you can see at the end of the calendar year for December of 2025, we had 9 single-family homes that were demoed.
Mhm.
In terms of new single-family homes and permits issued, and again, I apologize for the start here. 2021, we had 4. At the end of the calendar year of 2025, we had 10, and you can see the amount per year. The reason I put the star on 11 is the Long Acres or Birdie Lane
Mhm.
had 2 houses that were demoed, but 8 houses that were constructed.
Oh, yeah.
So there's,
Yeah.
can consider that. And we also did several lot splits in which you had 1 house raised and 2 houses built
Yeah.
in there. So did want to bring that to your attention. And I
Yeah.
think like Commissioner Powell had indicated, mapping these would probably give us a lot of insight too
Mhm.
in there. So we'll look at that. And again, I'm sorry about this part here. That I should have changed that.
What year were those houses across the street demoed?
It would, when they demoed the houses, it was quite a while that,
That's what I thought.
before they started clearing the lots fully and well before they started building.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's sad.
It's
It did.
probably, it could have been 2000.
That's just my memory of it,
Do we have rules around the amount of differentiators between each model? So, where I'm getting at is if I'm a McKelvey or a Douglas Properties or something like that, and I'm working on one street and I just buy house by house by house, year after year after year or every 2 years. Do we have rules around that those homes that are being built by the same developers have to be of a certain differentiator from the others? Or can these developers potentially come in and just build the same 2 models over and over and create a planned community within all of it? They're able to, they can just create.
It's a good, it is up to this commission. These are all brought through the commission. That was brought up in one of the previous meetings. We now show you the last 3 homes in our reports, and hopefully that assists the commission. And there's been discussions pointedly with the petitioners regarding, isn't this a similar home to the one we previously saw? Their response is, well, you approved that previously, so I went the safe route and brought a similar home. Not advocating for them, but it's been a discussion in there. But yeah, eventually a lot of them still get approved in there. We do bring the information to the commission's attention. There are guidelines that are in place in terms to consider like the neighborhood, but you could still, that one house, if it's 1 story, in theory, it can fit in any neighborhood, even though they all look the same. It's up to the commission if I don't know how to term it, if there is a concern or so, once one gets denied, they get they start thinking about it.
The more diversity of different homes too leads into higher, construction costs. If these builders build what they're used to, that.
Oh, I know, it's a cheaper way to go if it's already been done before. But is that, I guess I'm wondering, is that our concern, is keeping their construction costs down, or is our concern keeping the aesthetic of the community?
What we need to talk about. We haven't decided, we've brought it up a few times where we kind of had concerns that a lot of the new houses, are all looking the same, so that's been brought up, which is why they started adding, okay, here's the last couple ones that they've done. And we also look at kind of the streetscape of how that matches up, on that street. Because
But I guess if construction costs in your minds are going up, then the cost of homes are always also going up, right? So,
so it's trying to get that balance, but if you look, I did some searches on Zillow for kind of like new homes, and I looked for, what are the cheapest ones that are out there, and most of them are out in St. Charles or, that area, but they had some in University City. So I went and looked at those University City ones, and they had like 2 or 3, but they were all the exact same, and they, I don't know if it would have passed our, review. And that's a little bit of a drawback, is how do we get smaller houses, cheaper houses, but are unique enough, for our area. And it's a judgment that we're going to have to decide.
I wonder if part of that is setting some boundaries around the demo of what homes get demoed. I mean, someone deciding what's salvageable versus tear down.
We started. Petrie brought that up.
Petrie, do you have anything you want to add on that particular topic?
I think one of the several thoughts came to mind as you were talking, and one is that I am less bothered by, oh, that same house is here and on this street and this street, and it's, diverse. I'm more interested in having houses all be within the same sort of weight and massing on a street than that it not be cookie cutter. I mean, let's face it, suburban homes, they were all cookie cutter for a reason. It was to drive the costs down for the most part. So you doing the same. We're framing all of these houses on the same day. So yes, they look very similar. There's a reason for that. It was cost. So my issue with the demolition of any house as a matter of right is that there is a disincentive, in my view, for you to maintain your house. I live in a small house. You've been in my front yard. It's a small house. If I was looking at Olivet and saying, in terms of Olivet, look, I know my house is going to be bulldozed. Why would I go in and put in a $50,000 or $75,000 kitchen? That would be stupid. Did I do that? Yes, I did. Was that a good financial move on my part? No. So I'm just going to let my house deteriorate because it's a dozer. It's going to be bulldozed by the next owner. And here we have a general plan that says we want to encourage people to maintain their houses and get the old people to do nice things to their houses. Well, our policies are not matching up with what we're saying and when it comes to that dynamic. There's a house here off of Dealman that I noticed the survey things are, up. And the house looks to be in considerable disrepair. And I just know what's happening. It's been sold. It's going to be a dozer. And that was a nice house at one time. And somebody did the mathematics and said, it's just not worth putting any more money into this house when the next owner is going to be McKelvey.
Well, the sad part is, because I've been down this road many times, that it's cheaper to demo
Yeah, absolutely.
than it is to.
And
renovate.
the thing that I always loved about Olivet, which I don't think anybody's mentioned, I don't think ever here, which I'm sad about, is that, we aren't University City. Our housing stock is very tailored to, in my view, mid-century modern, which is now historic. And so we are demoing mid-century baby boomer oriented housing. And if we want families to live here that aren't millionaires, we have to go back to maybe what we used to be, which is mid-century modern, simple one-story houses that, don't have a lot of fancy this and that, but are good family homes.
Well, I'm curious, and I'm not disagreeing with you because I think you and I want similar things, but I'm actually will challenge then. How would you do that? Because the market's going to bear what the market's going to bear. People, well, and also I would say some people let their houses go because they can't afford to keep it up, and they want to still live there as long as they can, but they really can't afford. And to your point, they get to the end, and if the cost is this and the cost is why, this council is, and even the city council is not going to change the capitalist nature of the economy and things like that. So I'm honestly open to ideas of what could we do without doing crazy enforcement things like you can't build 2 stories or you can't, you must.
Well, I
Then no one
disagree.
would care.
I guess I disagree. I think you can have actual massing requirements that require you to, if you are in a line of single-story, mid-century modern homes, you are not allowed to put a big-ass farmhouse, make-believe house from Joe and Chip Gaines. I mean, like, it makes no sense to me. And you think that somebody is not gonna want to buy that house because it's not a farmhouse? I doubt it. We're in Ladue School District. We can do rules that keep the character of our community. And if we're willing, if we want to say we want to be Ladue Light, or we want to be Creve Coeur, or we want to be Frontenac, fine. Well, let's just say it out loud. That's the hard part. But if we wanted to keep the character and the size limitations that we now have, we have to be firm in what we approve. And we can develop rules around that.
I,
There's no question we can develop.
well,
rules
but I
around
also think there's potential litigation that comes with that
it.
because
There's always,
if
that's always a
we say
potential.
this house already, if this street already has, it's only mid-center under, and we say, well, if you live in a house like that, we're not going to allow you to demo, we're not going to allow you to build anything. But this street over here that's already got demolitions, we're going to let you do it. Somebody comes and says, you're not letting me do what I want to do with my house at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that, my friend, is the way development works in a lot of communities. You know, if you go over into University City and any of their historic neighborhoods and you see, you're not gonna see a mid-century modern amongst 25 colonials. You're just not gonna do it because they're not gonna approve it. The locals are not gonna approve it, the planning commission's not gonna approve it, council's not gonna approve it. They want it to all be consistent. I've come from several communities where we dictated the rules about the aesthetic matching what's already there. And litigation or no litigation, it's possible to do. It really is. It's just a matter of whether you have the chutzpah to do it.
I'm gonna.
And if it's important, and if you think it's important, I mean, it's up to council. If council, if the electorate doesn't like it, they vote you out.
I'm gonna throw out a couple things, not necessarily contrary to what you're saying, but some of the other things you gotta be careful with the older houses is, when I was out walking around and, but I saw a lot of places that have lead-based paint that are in deteriorated conditions, asbestos materials that are in deteriorated conditions, it's something that, people probably aren't aware of. And if, that could be that increases the cost of renovating those types of houses. And sometimes is a reason why they don't, do anything with it, because they know it's a hazard and they just kind of let it go. So it's, I think some awareness is going to be helpful, for these. But the other flip side is I had a house in Chevy Chase, small house, it's great, loved it, only had one full bathroom. And I had 4 kids, and 2 girls going into high school. I couldn't even take a shower. I had to join the J just to take a shower.
Tear it down.
We didn't tear it down, but there's another story to that too. But so but we wanted to stay in Olivet. We wanted our kids to still be going to Old Bonham because it's such a great school.
Right.
So having that ability to, get a bigger house, was huge for us. One interesting thing about the family that we sold the Chevy Chase house to, they didn't do any maintenance. It was pretty rough, and they sold it to a contractor, but the contractor didn't tear it down. He cleaned it up, renovated it, and resold it. So I think, I think there's a difference between like some of the homes that are there that it's worth renovating. There are some houses that are very tired, that are almost condemned, that probably need to be torn down. How we balance that with trying to get people to keep or maintain their houses is a tricky thing. Do we enforce, maintenance requirements? I don't think anybody's gonna like that, but
We have,
We have.
We have.
requirements.
the city has.
yeah,
So
Go ahead.
I come from a very different and unique perspective on this because I grew up in the Northeast quadrant. I lived through the whole being bought out for Walmart and not happening and people not maintaining their homes after that
yeah,
to then my mom's house was on Ram Court, my house was on Irvington. When my mom passed away, I ended up selling her house and still had mine on Irvington and then was bought out for Irvington Place. There are some homes that are in desperate need of repair over in the Northeast quadrant. You walk that area, there's some that desperately need repair. We wanted to keep our son in Ladue School District. He was going to be a freshman. I can't tell you how many houses we looked at throughout Creve-Coeur, Olivet, like well out of my price range. Like if it was for sale, I went and looked at it. If it was anywhere close to the point that my son at 14 was almost 6 foot. We'd go into I remember going into a house over off of Villa. His head was like scraping the ceiling to go down into the basement. And I'm going, yeah, this isn't going to work. Like he's still growing. Like this isn't going to happen. But we ended up buying up off of Warson over in Queensbrook. And I love my house. And would be like one of those mid-century modern houses. I love it. It was flipped. It's really nice. However, I have gone back over to the Northeast quadrant many times. I know people over there still and what some of those new houses are going for over there. There's no way.
no,
And people are buying them, but I think there is no way I would spend that kind of money to then not even drive, walk 6 houses and see a house that the windows are falling out of. And you're paying $700,000 for a house and 4 doors from you, like the windows are falling out. No, I see both sides of it, but I also know that when the whole Walmart deal didn't go through, that the city came in and told people they had to do certain maintenance. And they were told, there's people that had to pour new driveways to the cost of $30,000 and $40,000. And if they didn't, they had to come to court. So, the
Yeah.
city does do those things.
Yeah.
So,
but that was tough for those people.
it was, but it was either do that or pay a fine. So,
Yeah,
those things did happen. So I don't know.
yeah, I get it.
I don't know that I don't know the answer. I think I see the value in keeping some of the smaller homes because I feel very fortunate. I'll be the first to tell you, I think I overpaid, but I had really no choice.
Right.
But I'm happy with my house. So then again, it's what it is. So I don't know.
So how do we decide
Yeah.
what houses to keep, what houses?
Well,
not?
we are in Queensbrook and Kingsbrook, there can be no 2 stories. It's part of our HOA.
Mhm.
They're not allowed. So that's something that the neighborhood has decided.
Do you have any tear downs or new
No.
houses in there? That's interesting.
Nope. The house right next to me applied to do it an addition for a 2-story before we moved in.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do a 2-story and they had to get so many people in the subdivision
Petition.
to sign an agreement. And then they ended up, it's not the people that live there. They ended up selling because they're like, we're not dealing with us.
Right.
So it didn't happen.
How long have they had that rule in place?
I don't know.
Probably since their indenture.
I don't know.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of yeah.
Well, I think it's Stony side that the rule is you can't have a 2-story. You can't go above a 1.5 stories. So then a developer designed a 1.5 stories and then just put it on repeat down the whole street,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, so
yeah.
it's hard. You make rules for one reason, but then there's always
Unintended
an
consequence.
unintended, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also clear our rules, and I think you clarified this for us, Carlos, is that demolition's a matter of right here. So we're not gonna get a say unless we change that rule. Because they can do it and then come to us and say, we wanna build this. Well, why don't you keep the house you have? Oh, we tore it down last week.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
I'm wondering on the demolition thing, speaking of like unintended consequences, if I'm gaming out how that would work. Someone comes to us and they say, we want to demolish this, you know, McKelvey or whatever's bought it. We want to demolish it and build a new house. We say, no, this looks like a perfectly good, nice mid-century modern home that we want to keep. And they say, okay. Then they don't take care of the property for
Right.
2 years.
Demolition by
And,
neglect.
and then they come back and they say, look how terrible this property is now. And we're put in a position of saying, well, I guess you're right. You know, it is terrible now. And now we have to knock it down and build.
Well, I think
build a
that's
new one.
where the code enforcement becomes really important.
Yeah.
And maintenance important. And I think that is, you know, demolition by neglect is a huge problem in the historic preservation
Yeah.
realm. And, you know, we're seeing it now, but I think the only way to combat that is with a rigorous code enforcement maintenance.
But code enforcement doesn't work either.
Oh, I beg to
Again,
differ.
it doesn't. I've been dealing with the same issue for over 2.5 years. and it's
Well,
still not better.
maybe, you know, your individual work, you know, things happen and certainly it does. But I mean, if you look at University City, I can tell you that the housing values would not be anywhere near what they are if it wasn't for their rigorous code enforcement. I mean, they're like on you.
Then we need some new.
That's tough. When you start going into that code enforcement.
It is,
It is
it's not for
tough.
the weak.
No, no, it
It
is.
is not for the weak.
And you're just, there's going to be anger, you know, that's created. So that's just something to be
Yeah.
thinking
No,
about.
it is. It's a decision.
Yeah, it is. That's why we need to discuss it
Yeah.
and throw it out as options, you know, and say,
We just have to decide.
I would love to see, you know, kind of the cost of the, you know, how much does it cost to build a certain style home, you know, in these different areas and what that looks like, you know, what other options are there, you know?
We've been seeing houses being built north of Olive, like in the same realm as what we're seeing in South. Big, expensive $1 million houses. I didn't know. about
Not
this.
to the same extent, but they're going
They're
up.
going up.
Yeah, and you're seeing that kind of the Northwest. We're probably seeing more of the more affordable single family homes going up kind of in the Northeast and
What affordability means.
yeah, that's
Well, I mean,
that's like 600. You're in the mid to high 600.
Anymore.
yeah,
You couldn't afford to buy a new,
No,
new,
right,
a new place, but there's a difference.
Yeah.
You know, with that, you know, so. But the existing homes, I think are, they're still, I'd love to see the range of the existing homes. And kind of a little bit, what do they look like, you know, from the outside?
One of the things I wanted to notice in terms of the discussion, they talked about policy in there. And right now, you know, it is, as we talked about Queensbrook, Kingsbrook in there, you know, the way the current process is established is they're responsible for the enforcement of that height. And if a property owner from the subdivision came in and applied for a permit to put a second level, because of the way the code is set, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, the way the code is set is we're obligated to issue them that permit.
Yeah.
You know, if we measure height, and there, it goes back to this, we have this one single family zoning district to fit all. But we have a lot of unique subdivisions throughout the community.
Yeah.
And it may be looking at, you know, what are some of those characteristics. Stony Side and Heatherwood,
Mhm.
they're great. I mean, people know that when they go in there, their height restriction's 25 feet, or the city allows 35 feet.
Mhm.
And when somebody comes in, and we've had it before, it's like, you need to go talk to the subdivision in there. I mean, I'm obligated to bring it before the commission, but it's like, you're gonna have problems, with the subdivision. You need to go talk to them, and then they'll come back with a revised plan, reducing the height. Now, I will note what that has done when you have a two-story home and you have that height, you're like this. But when you got to address that height, you go like this, and now I got a lot of stormwater problems because I got
Mhm.
bigger footprints.
Yeah,
And that was one of the,
There's always something.
yeah.
Mhm.
so, so again, going back to that, looking at, what are, what's unique about some of these subdivisions, and maybe it's not just about lot size, but it may be about heights, building heights, then that assists the subdivision to kind of maintain that, because they can't come to the commission with an excess height. That's a zoning board of adjustment, and that would be a difficult thing to prove if everywhere else around you has a one-story height or a specific height in there, that you can't have viable use of your property. One of the other things I wanted to know, so we give the council monthly updates on our permit in there, and you can see here, this is by fiscal year, which it goes from July to June in there, so 22 to 26, and this is kind of the data I just shared with you about 6 new homes being built in all of it almost to date in there. But we failed to kind of take a look at, we've had 50 existing homes that have been improved, whether through additions or renovations. And we have a lot of homes where they get flipped, where they're not necessarily pulling a permit, but they go in there, they clean, they paint,
Yeah.
they enhance, and then turn it around. And so we'll gather some of that data, that there's a lot of housing stock, it's more housing stock that's getting improved than it's getting torn down in there. And then, just so you're aware, so we also get the council information on the cost. So you can see the cost of a new home in Olivet in the past 3 years. It dropped in 2025, but it went up to 873 um, in 2026. But you could see the cost of the average cost for a house addition in Olivet, 324,000. The average cost for an interior improvement, this is a new kitchen, new bath or basement, is almost 61,000, is over $61,000. So we're looking at that. But the key thing is to look at back in 2024, to do your bathroom, the average bathroom, kitchen or basement remodel was a little over, was almost $37,000. It's almost doubled in price,
Wow.
the construction cost. And none of these houses got bigger. This is all within the footprint of the home.
Wow. And what's interesting is like the new homes price isn't that dramatically different. I mean, it's going higher, but it's not double.
Well, and the accessory structures dropped by like 60%. And it could be, but it went up from 17,000. So some of that could be somebody, I hate to say, put in a massive accessory structure, and
Yeah.
they put in $1 million accessory structure. They had a racetrack.
Here's the results.
It's a big category, and 31 isn't a huge number to play with. But
Maybe
it
if
is
we
interesting.
look at the median.
I am a little surprised, and I'm kind of encouraged for the conversation. Total number of new homes, 6. So it's not as many tear down, knockdown as I fear. And we're not a huge community anyway, but I'm glad it's not like 100.
But the
Yeah.
number of permits has doubled almost.
Um, a number of permits for new home.
We've got
all
for all permits,
for all
204.
permits have doubled.
Mhm.
Or
And
almost
that
doubled.
Oh,
includes-
number of
Yeah.
permits total, because
Just
I think
total.
people, well, roof
Roof,
plays
yeah.
a huge part of that when there's a hailstorm. Everyone goes up and
Yeah, that shot up this
yeah,
year.
one storm does that, and everyone till afterwards.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and we looked at that. So we also gave it the commission, the council information on, the past 3 years, what's the average costs of that the information is being provided, what's the average cost of those improvements?
Wonder why it went down for additions in 2025.
It could be, there was some pretty significant ones and sizable ones that came in. So going back to the information. So again, ultimately, we're looking at the northeast quadrant. I'm gonna take this out of the way, if that's all right.
Right, this quadrant, yeah.
Here's I-170 and Olive is down here. This is the area. There's 304 housing units in there. We just added 208, but also took out the 19 or 21 from Irvington Rhyme. So, we now have 500 units. These are both multifamily, single family, and attached. 200 of those are owner occupied. And the total population in here, based on the 2020 census, was 716. So that's almost 10% of all of that.
How many units are being added with the new,
208.
and those will be projects?
Correct. There'll be apartments.
And this funnels into Old Bonham, right? From
No.
elementary, no.
It goes to Reed.
Reed.
Yep.
Interesting.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's
Like,
weird.
So, right, the due in price.
Oh,
So it's weird because it goes to Reed, where I'm at on Warson goes to Spady. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
that's, yeah.
I mean, like, I'm
That's
literally
weird.
like right at Olive and Warson, but we go to Spady.
80. That is weird.
I think the school district decided to split up north of Olive so that there's more diversity between the,
That, but
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's so crazy though.
Well, wasn't there another elementary school up there?
yes. There used to be 10 elementary
Yeah,
schools. There
yeah.
was
Oh,
not
my.
anymore.
Two
No,
rural
no,
kids
in the
would
Ladue School
do.
District, there used to be 10 elementary schools.
We had more. We had one off Dealman. It was Dealman School,
I think we had 2, Grandview,
Grandview.
Hilltop.
There was Hilltop School as well.
There's
Yeah.
Central School where Logos is now.
No, that was in middle school.
No,
It was-
Central School was an elementary school.
Oh, but
My
then it
dad
changed-
went there for
Then
elementary
did
school.
it changed to like an elementary or a middle school though, eventually?
It might have
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah.
It was like East Junior High or something.
No, East Junior High is the current middle school. West Junior High is where the 5th grade center is.
Mm.
Yeah, because that was,
Yeah, that's right.
the 5th grade center was,
It was originally West Junior High, then it became Westminster, and
West-
then
oh, that's
and
what
then
it was.
Ladue bought it
Okay,
back.
okay, okay.
Yeah. At a
Okay,
higher
so
price.
it was, okay. Yeah, 'cause where Logos was, it, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it was sense. I was thinking it was where Logos.
All right, we'll go back to, again, you can, when, just kind of in a visual, we'll get more information as we go through this process. I mean, you can look at the tan shade here reflects 50 to 60 foot wide lots. A majority of these houses were built, started in the 1920s through the 1950s. There are some 1950s vintage as you jump over here. Then there's Arrowhead Park. Most of those are late 50s, early 60s. They range from 60 to maybe there's a couple that are up to 100 feet in terms of frontage. And then you have Hilltop Manor that was built into the 2000s. Those are attached. So there's a probability to look at this in different sets and to apply different standards in those districts that are more reflective of the community as a whole. Note, I mean, we approved a 2-story home. I think it's at Chickasaw and
It's-
Hilltop.
Yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, that one stands out.
Yes,
It's
yes, it
like
has.
sore thumb.
Yes,
And so,
yes.
Like a sore thumb.
so, but anyway, so we're gonna be taking a look at that. We'll look at those housing values and try to gather information to see where that has gone. And then kind of look at that as probably one of the case studies to kind of go over. And I think that's all I had. Be glad to answer if there's any questions.
Carlos, this is great. This
Okay.
is,
fantastic.
this is exactly what we need to be talking about and looking at. And it's great timing with, since we don't have as many, petitions coming in. This is really good stuff.
All right.
So thank you for putting this all
No problem.
together. This is educational.
On the blue map, are these, the different shades of blue, are these just different census tracts?
Yes,
Is
it
what
was
that is?
getting down to the census block information. It's hard to extract, and
Yeah.
the level of data gets less and less. I thought I was able to get the age of housing stock, but I was not successful in that. But
Can we also,
happy to look into that.
can we also find out how many of these are rentals?
yes,
compared to-
yes, we can. The information's not that accurate, but we can.
Yeah,
And it's about just a little over a third. Now, one of the things working with one of the subdivisions that was trying to do an amendment or kind of dissolve the HOA, they had to go through a vote in there, and they were willing to share what the information they had because there was a lot of rentals that were rental properties because they weren't voting and they needed it part of that vote. I don't think the HOA dissolved yet in there, but that was kind of interesting to see how much in there. Back in prior to 2008, I mean, we had a whole bunch of different banks that had holdings in there with the recession. But since it was all of that, I mean, those turned over quickly
yeah,
in there. But we still have a lot of investment properties.
Yeah.
okay,
there's a
great.
lot.
Okay, so we'll move on. Any other discussion? If not, we'll move on to other business, meeting minutes. Was that due to the printer?
Printer, I wasn't there. Copy, it is uploaded as a draft on the website, but I will just come home.
Yeah, I was trying to make a joke.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did it, and that's great. So we'll go on to reports.
All right, yeah, the schedule of events in there, but a couple of things just to inform the commission in there and since we had missed our last meeting, the city council did hold 3 public hearings and consider second readings for well, actually, it was 2 public hearings, the residential solar panels and the data centers. The data centers were adopted. They are now, the regulations for the data centers are now in place, and that requires them to obtain a special permit, sets up the separate tiers, and then specifically bans data centers based on the buffer and size in there. The rooftop solar panels was tabled. It will be considered by the council at their next meeting. There was a couple of questions and issues regarding in the process, and I'll let our liaison talk about the communications component in there. But there was also some questions regarding some of the 5. I think there were like 5 conditions that were in place. There was some questions to the council why regulate color in there if most of them are pretty consistent. I think it was a valid concern, but I think it's also a valid coverage point because you never know in there, and you can find some colorful solar panels in place in there. Number 2 was in terms of some of the use, we use that it should be a color comparable to the existing roof, where there was the comment was that maybe the word choice should be compatible. And so it was just about the difference between those 2 words. I did explain to the council the reason we went with comparable is because it's used 15 times in our municipal code, and 7 of those times are within our zoning and land use regulations. And that was just to stay consistent with that term in there. It would be fine if it went either way in there, but the council was going to kind of, I think that aspect that was set, but then there was some questions about some comments, the access of comments from the public, and then I think that's it. A couple of things. Brass Tap has its ribbon cutting April 10th. The Paris Baguette is working on theirs. I think it's going to be late April in there, and unless Jack or Don have anything else to provide. All right.
I'll call out a date to add on here is Election Day, April 7th. So get out and vote. Reminder for City Council, you can vote for 2 people on the ballot, and for school district, I think you can vote for 3. So, so make sure to get out and vote either here, 5 Oaks, or wherever you need to be. To echo kind of what Mr. Trejo was saying about the solar panels. So it received a lot of feedback. I think, you know, some of it to that point, you know, the comparable colors, because we did look online, you can buy red solar panels. You know, if you want to kind of just give staff the ability to bring that forward to the council, but also the goal of that was to make things move forward, similar to what we talked about tonight.
So let me ask you a question. You want red, the ability for them to have?
No,
red?
we wanted the ability to the choice. The thought was we didn't want to just limit specific ones, but if people brought forward a color that didn't seem comparable or comparable, was that the word? Comparable with the roof color, it didn't jive, then staff had the ability to bring it to council to the commission here to review it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so exactly, that was the whole goal of it. Is like, yeah, bring it if someone brings something that doesn't make sense. There was a communication error. So one of the things we ran into is various residents had actually submitted emails to at the Olivet, you know, general email site, and it had not been received and sent to the city council. So we tabled the discussion for that day to make sure, and it was a technical error. It went to spam, was not flagged, or the other ones were missed, and so the staff is actually working to correct that. So in the future they won't. Apologies were sent to the residents because it was a miss and it shouldn't be. And so it was a good catch. And I'm glad we tabled it. And we said we'll discuss it the next time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, definitely a lot of discussion on that. So, and then just main thing is a reminder to vote on the 7th and visit our new businesses in town. So excited! I got to go to the Brass Tap first time the other day. So check it out.
Good things about it.
Yeah, it seemed to be lively. A lot of people there at lunch, and it was exciting.
I stopped by there on Saturday and yeah, it was quite lively. Looking forward to when the patio opens.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that
Yeah.
that will be neat.
So,
Good addition.
all right.
All right. Any other further discussion? Anybody else have any announcements? Seeing none, we'll adjourn at 8:29. Thanks.